Yeah, thanks for coming to another Junior Developer Happy Hour. We are just trying to get a bunch of different opinions from a lot of different people in the industry for anyone who's trying to jump into tech and become a developer for the first time, and just get a lot of so many people have different perspectives of what works for getting a job, what worked for them. And so we are trying to make a space where people can come and ask questions that they might have. And that is this. So we started back in like the springtime of this past year. How it works for anyone who is new here is we have this Slido link that I will be posting. Oh, Brian, you're on it. Thank you. Knew I could count on you. So that is the Slido link where people can ask questions, and then you can also upvote questions. That helps us make sure that we are getting to the questions and prioritizing the questions that the most people are interested in hearing the answers to. If there ends up being, if you have a follow-up question directly related to something that we're talking about, then you can go ahead and put that in our Zoom chat. Otherwise, other links to resources that we are talking about, the Zoom chat is also a good place for those. If you are able to stay around until the end, that's when we are able to invite people to come off mute and we can have more of a conversation. People can introduce themselves, and it's how I've gotten to meet a lot more people than otherwise would have been possible in just like a little conversation between a few people. I guess I can really quick just also give a plug. If you haven't checked out, we just officially published our next guest. It's scheduled for next week on Saturday, same time. It is Jerry, is a girl that she graduated in the cohort, I think 2 cohorts before me. I went to Dev Bootcamp back in 2017. And so she graduated just a couple of weeks before me. And she was just really impressive to me because she was the very first person in her whole cohort to get a job offer. And she recognizes, and we can talk a little bit about more, and the fact that she was not one of the strongest, technically speaking, in her cohort. So I thought it was really cool that she was the first person. And that's enough about the meetup and background there. A little bit about me. I'm Brady. I'm a software engineer at Nordstrom Trunk Club. I am a full stack dev, and I went to Dev Bootcamp back in 2017, like I was just saying. That's enough. I've talked a ton. So Sam, go ahead and say some words.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Sam. Now I got technical difficulties. What the hell? Well, I gotta figure it out. My headphones aren't working, but can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, dude.
Okay, now it's working. Yeah, I'm Sam. I'm in Tulsa now. I just moved to Tulsa, got here on Sunday. So I'm a front-end developer. I'm taking a sabbatical right now. I was working at Lyft.
Oh no, you cut out.
Did I?
Now I hear
You cut out for a second, yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
your headphones batteries are losing.
Maybe
juice.
this Tulsa internet is not all that it's cracked up to be.
I'm in an Airbnb now. This is not my internet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I was at Lyft. I worked at a bunch of different companies. Been a developer for about 7 years now. And yeah, if you want the long story, you can go back to our earlier recordings on Brady's YouTube channel. You can drop that in the chat, Brady, if you haven't. That's where our past recordings are. And we got a whole bunch of stuff lined up. Brady's been filling up our calendar, so we got a bunch of stuff. Check the meetup page. We're booked out for like a month now, every Saturday. And then I'm gonna be scheduling more meetups since once I get settled, once I get my setup at my apartment, I'll set up other meetups maybe on Sunday, I'm thinking. So we'll do Saturday and Sunday. We'll do the AMAs on Saturdays, and then I'll come up with other stuff. Maybe we can do on Sundays.
You should do more of those interviews. Those were really good.
Which interview?
You were doing mock interviews. They were.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
those are great.
Yeah. I'm gonna do more of those. So we'll see. I'll try to set up like a set time just so it's easy to remember like when the meetups are. Okay, let's get to our special guest who was just speaking. That was Nick Feitel. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then we can get to the questions. And people post your questions in the Slido. Brady linked it in the chat. And yeah, how's it going, Nick?
Hi there. Yeah. I don't know if you guys heard, but I'm going to be fidgeting a lot because what's it called? I've got ulnar nerve palsy or something like that. I slept on my arm weird, and apparently that causes my nerves or whatever, my arm, my like two fingers to be like numb and my elbow to hurt. So I'm going to be moving my arm a lot. Anyway, I'm Nicholas. Nice to meet you guys. Let's see. I'm a software engineer too at American Express. I'm a full stack dev. I work with JavaScript only, but I Rails, Redux, an open source thing that American Express has called Iguazu, which is an async query engine, and Node on the back end, Express, and some other stuff. Before that, I was an actor. I still do auditions. I think I'm supposed to record a voiceover audition for Jimmy John's this weekend as somebody who is an expert on sandwiches. So there's that about me too. I did a Geico commercial, an iPhone commercial, a bunch of commercials for Expedia, bunch of stuff. Let's see. I was on a show called The Deuce briefly. I was on a show called Divorce, some show called Neon Joe Werewolf Hunter. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. I'll give a very small version of the spiel I give usually, which is that I was 32. I'm 33 now, and I was very depressed, and I was at my birthday party doing karaoke because I love karaoke. And my friend was like, "Why don't you?" I'm like, I was walking dogs, and I was like, "Well, this is depressing. I don't have like any money, and I was dating somebody at the time, and I wanted to marry her, and I was like, oh, okay." And my friend who was there was like, "Hey, why don't you try coding? All my friends who ever did it, their money problems all went away." And I said, okay. So I started doing these online prep courses for boot camps. I had the one thing I was good at as an actor was networking. So I was very good at like engaging my network and asking people like, "Hey, do you think I would be good at coding? Like, hey, is coding a good career? Hey, like, how did you learn coding?" Things like that. I got recommendations for different boot camps. I found out about Flatiron. I was very lucky. I had about like I had like a good admissions person there who challenged me to do 30 hours of coding a week in preparations for going to the boot camp, and I did. They said that I got through the fastest all the pre-work there of anybody who had not had a coding background. I had no coding background, and got in there. Thought I was. Tell me if I'm talking too much, Sam. If this will be addressed by questions. Thought I was hot shit. Showed up there. Thought I was hot shit. I actually had to delay it because I was doing a movie. I was playing a goofy caddy in a millennial Caddyshack type of thing. Got there. Thought I was hot shit. Went to a place called Access Labs. It doesn't exist anymore. It was part of Flatiron School. It was for people who make under a certain amount of money, which at that point I did. And it was a good place. It had its problems, but it was also full of very interesting people, and it was extremely diverse, which I really appreciated. There were people of every gender, ethnicity, people from every country, people of every sexual orientation and gender representation. I think there was a non-binary person or a trans person in 1 out of every 2 cohorts, which was very impressive to me. It was a really cool place. I thought I was really good at code. I graduated from school. It was intense, it was just a real experience. I feel bad for people that they don't get the in-person experience anymore for boot camps. And I graduated. I had my job fair. I thought I was hot shit at my job fair. I got an interview with a company. I got through first round interview. I got through second round interview. I got through third round interview. I was waiting for my what's it called? I was waiting for an offer from them, and that was on March 29th, and then the city shut down, and the company that I was waiting for an offer from, instead of hiring me, laid off 20% of its staff, and I no longer had an offer. Or I never had an offer, but I didn't have an offer then. The position no longer existed. So that sort of began 7 months of like trying to look for a job. Usually in my school, you get a job within 6 months, but it was the pandemic, and it was very hard. I had a lot of sort of like terrible experiences, like really heartbreaking. I got through all the rounds at Facebook. I think that's when Braidy reached out to me, which was very kind. I wrote a big sad sack post on LinkedIn about that, which is probably not the best idea, but I was feeling emotional. That was sad. Got through last round at Full Stack Academy. Got through last round. What's it called? A place called Code Cove. It seemed pretty cool. But just nothing ever clicked, and it was brutal. Yeah, and then I started. What I did is I got really involved with meetups. Again, my networking skills were always pretty good. I went to this one a couple times. I really liked it. I started recommending it to everybody. I started going. There were like a few meetups that I had gone to, like while I was in boot camp or right after. Ones that I really recommend to everybody. One's called NYC Boot Campers Anonymous. David Ash runs that. It was really good. And I remember I just showed up there. It was one of the last physical times they were meeting. And I just like helped. I just like started helping like put together chairs and like put things together. I was just like, this is a nice thing that David's doing for free. Like I should be helping him. And I had experience producing. So I just like kept like, just like, let me help. Let me be a part of this. I got involved with one called NYC Coders, which is really good. Talia Fayez, Sam Guo. Really nice people. They were just helping people do data structures and algorithms at a full stack. I got involved in one called NYC Python. It was over in the Microsoft building. There's, all these things are still exist. They're online. I remember I would just go there. You'd be there at the Microsoft building. You'd feel so cool in Times Square. I got involved in all these when they were online as well, which was really nice. And it ended up being that just, and at the same time, I was like trying to work real hard. I was like doing like 5 hours of coding a day. I like, learned a bunch of extra languages. I deployed a bunch of extra projects.
You're on mute all of a sudden.
There you go. Thank you. Sorry about that. So then what happened is that after all of a sudden, while I was really depressed, a friend of mine, he was just like, hey, job just opened at my department, like in my, where I work. Do you want to apply? And I was like, yeah, sure. At that point, I was so burned out that I just assumed I was just never going to get a job, or it'd be like another, 6 months. But I was like, yeah, sure, I'll apply. And I applied and went through the interview process. And, I think in less than a week, I was hired there. Where I work, American Express, it's really nice. I have, as somebody who's worked mostly service industry jobs in his life, that are other than being an actor, I feel like I've got like a lot of PTSD or like very like a lot of fear. When I was starting off my job, I constantly felt like somebody was going to fire me, or somebody was going to, like discover how terrible I am or something like that. I thought if somebody made PR comments like I'm terrible, why am I not doing better at this, or I should know how to do everything, or like whatever. And what I consistently found was just like everybody's kind for the most part. Like everybody's really nice. The people who are like douchey or the outliers, everybody's got different weaknesses and strengths. Now at my job, I help people all the time too. Like it's really nice to be able to like but it's that same sort of skill, I would say, that whole time, because I'm a pretty good coder. Like I said, I felt pretty strong when I graduated from my school. And by pretty good coder, I'm going to be humble, which is that I'm saying I'm a pretty good coder, but at the same time, I remember there was a dev channel in my friend group in our Slack, and I remember trying to talk to them when I graduated from school and just interacting with them, all these people who are professionals, and just realizing that like I knew nothing compared to them. So like I'm not a terrible coder, but I would say really the skill that has propelled me forth throughout my career has just been my ability to just talk to other human beings and be kind and be empathetic, and be willing to ask for help, be willing to give help. that's really been, I think, what has helped me the most. So yeah.
Can you share some YouTube links of your commercials?
Yes. I'll what's it called? What I can do is that I'll write it. I'll just like say it right now. If you want to Google it, it's Nick. The one that the commercial one I think you can find online. That's by Nicholas Feitel Reel or something like that. But like I think the one that I really like is the film and TV one. It's called Nicholas Feitel Good at Saying Lines in Front of Much More Famous People, I believe. That's what I called it. It's like me and me and like Chris Bauer, me and Wyatt Cenac, me and John Glazer, a bunch of those things. I had a commercial with Hannibal Buress for Samsung that was supposed to come out, but then the Samsung phone started exploding and then it never came out. It was pretty sad.
Oh man.
So
Hannibal Buress, very nice guy. Very nice
are these all on like your YouTube channel? Can we just find the channel and then?
Yeah, some of them are,
Okay.
Brian just
some of them
dropped the
are,
link
some of them
in
are
the
not. There's like
chat.
laws about like what you can still like they have to pay me a certain amount if they're still online or like whatever. But yeah, there's some good ones.
Awesome. Oh yeah. So a couple minutes ago, you were talking about all the awesome meetups. We dropped the link for the NYC Boot Campers Anonymous and NYC Coders. There was a third one that I wasn't fast enough.
Yeah, I really like this one too. It's called NYC Python. And by the way, if you guys aren't located in New York City, these are all virtual. You can attend any of them. It's really good. I think they're doing right now, like sometime either next week or whenever, they're doing like a demo day for job seekers and for employers, where you can like demo your project and like theoretically employers would be there, which I think is incredible. Yeah, those guys were super sweet. I remember I knew no Python when I went there, and there's just people who are like, like, hey, like, can we help you? Like, hey, like here's, like us doing a course, like, I remember I did like a lightning talk there. They have like lightning talks where you can like practice doing a talk. Just really sweet, really, and they're all Microsoft engineers, so just like very sweet people. Also, all diverse, which is very cool, including women, people of color. Very, very cool group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Speaking of lightning talks, there's a meetup for Techlahoma tomorrow. That's virtual too. I put the link in the Slack in the events channel.
Yeah.
And also, if I made a virtual coffee channel, I don't know if people saw it yet. If you join the channel, you'll randomly get paired up with somebody in this community to just get to know each other. So yeah. Okay, let's get started with the questions, Brady.
Cool. And then here, I am just posting our Slido for today one more time because it kind of got lost in all of those awesome links. So open that up, and that way, if you have a question that you'd like to ask, or if you want to keep your eye on what you want to vote for to get answered, you have it there. All right. So first question we have here: how much time do you devote to personal projects, review, and job hunt? Or how much time did you?
Okay, back in the day, that's a good question. I would say, I would budget about what I tell people, and I think what I did myself is I would budget about 3 hours a day, 6 days a week to coding. So that would be mostly personal projects or algo review. The way that I learned algos is not the way that everybody else is going to learn algos. And don't even ask me about when I had to try to quote unquote learn systems design. I was mostly looking at a guy who was giving examples of how to understand systems design with the schema of pizzerias. That was humiliating. But when I was learning algos, I would learn. I would try to do a problem for about 15 minutes. And if I couldn't do it, I felt lost, I would just go and on YouTube. I like a guy named Kevin Naughton Jr. and a guy named Nick White. They do good walkthroughs of, though my friend Summer thinks that Nick White is too much of a code bro, which I think what do they call them? Tech bros? Programmers, yes. So because he's got like the emo haircut from Spider-Man 3 going on. But like when Peter Parker gets like emo because he's like Venom. So but they're all fun and they all do really good walkthroughs of the algo problems. So I try to I would go and I would just try to rewrite every line if I didn't understand, I would try to rewrite every line that they did. Often they wrote in Java, so I would try to transcribe that to JavaScript. That was a good experience learning. I would write a comment for every line, so I understood what every line that they were doing did. So that would be my way of trying to understand a problem and get through it if I didn't understand it. So I would say I didn't have like a strict thing for whether I was going to work on a personal project today or whether I was going to do coding and algorithms, but I knew it would be at least 3 hours a day. That way I wouldn't burn out, but I would still be working consistently. And then for the job hunt, I would say that I job hunted very passively, which is maybe why it took me a while, but I believe more in networking than I believe in job hunting. And so I was just like trying to like, I would apply to some things, and if they had any like, I would check the jobs, I would say every day or two. And if they had any connections to me, like if I knew somebody worked at the company, I would reach out to them. I remember once I got a lead from something called Major League Hacking. They did a job fair. I remember, Facebook, I was referred, like I had, but that was all networking. So like I would try to see more, I would just let people know that I was looking for a job and then just try to be as engaged in my community as I could. For me, that was what job hunting was like being like when the nice person the reason I really like this guy, and the reason why I'm not saying his name is I don't want everybody to hound him for a job, but like when the nice person who gave me my job like offered me, told me about it, like I had never asked him for a job. Like he, and for me that was the way that it was supposed to be, is that like I don't want to put pressure on anybody. I don't want to turn our relationship into a transactional relationship. The way that I approach networking is that it's more like Stardew Valley or something like that. Like you want to cultivate relationships and you want to allow them to progress. You don't want to like treat them like you're hunting or whatever. So yeah.
Cool. Again, you had mentioned 2 different people for YouTube, Kevin Naughton Jr. and then another one.
Nick White. I
Nick
also know
White.
some people like a guy named the Coding Ninja or something like that. There's a lot of very goofy world of people who want to put themselves on YouTube solving algorithm problems. The only thing I would say is I would recommend against. I think they give them money now to shill for like rooftop slushy or something like that, or things like that. Where you have to like pay for referrals. I would avoid those.
All right. Next question then. What is something that you know now that you wish you knew when you were first learning how to code?
It's a good question. I mean, I guess like, what I think is, it's just pretty stupid and technical. I feel like this is more of asking for a spiritual answer, so I'll try to think of that. But I would say the number one thing that I wish I knew when I was learning code is npm run eslint :fix, or eslint whatever eslint -- fix on whatever file you're going to do, because not only does it like this, if you have like a good linter for JavaScript, just like not only does it like fix and make your code look all professional, but then it also like tells you if you have unused variables. It tells you, if you messed up your declaration somewhere, if your code, often it'll tell you if there's some bug in your code too. It's just like, it's like super time saving and super helpful. I guess if we're talking about like spiritual, I don't, something that is very embarrassing to admit is that like I felt like back when I was starting to learn code, I felt like I needed to understand everything that I was doing. And now I do not feel like I need to understand everything that I'm doing. In time, I will learn more about things. ESLint, check that out. But what's it called? In time, I'll understand things, but it's okay for me to not understand some concepts in JavaScript, even if I can use them. Like even if I don't understand, for instance, what's it called? Automated garbage collection in JavaScript. Like that's okay. I'll learn it sometime. Right now, there's only so much I can learn in a period, and I don't want to burn out. Right now, just learn the things that are necessary for me, and then if there's stuff that I'm interested in, bookmark it and go back and learn about it. I think I would say that's like the spiritual answer to that question.
I dig it.
I also recommend Prettier format on
Pretty's
Save.
good too. Pretty's good too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have some hooks so that it sounds like you had to run something, but we have hooks integrated into our app. So when we save it and then try to commit, it'll just automatically tell
Oh,
us
I
all
don't
that
like
stuff.
that.
No?
No, because
Because you
sometimes you
wait,
want
you
to.
find out late.
Well, sometimes you want to just push like a whip commit, and like you don't want it to reject.
We
So
have hooks like that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, if I was on your team, I would jump in there and I would delete all that stuff. Just because I run into pain with those things in the past.
Mm.
TypeScript is good too, and we use TypeScript at Amex. I have TypeScript experience, but like at the same time, TypeScript can sometimes be a pain in the ass depending
Yeah, it
on
is.
if people are poorly designing things, which people who are programming are constantly doing. So
Yeah, it makes the build a lot harder. You can run into a lot of problems. I've run into problems where your like machine runs out of memory and stuff like that when your app gets really big if you don't set up the configurations, and it's kind of hard to configure TypeScript correctly.
or even just for me, like what if I want to what if I'm adding something to the Redux store, like a query or something like that, and I'm adding something to a component. Now I have to like make sure not only in my tests but also in like all of like my files
Yeah,
that I have to update all of those. I have to update the interface for those props to make sure that they now account for whatever new things I'm adding in there. It's just like a lot of, but that's a whole different story.
you don't need to write as many tests. You don't need as many unit tests if you use TypeScript.
This is true.
Yeah. So, but anyways, next question.
Next question. All right, this one is: when looking for your first job as a recent bootcamp grad, what's more important to concentrate on, data structures and algorithms, or working on your portfolio?
Data structures and algorithms. Not even a question. Working your portfolio is good. I run a resume review workshop every week for people who are trying to break into the industry with my friend Sean, who's the lead software engineer at Hopper. And, we talk about the importance of projects, and projects are really important. I remember showing my girlfriend, she was asking like what a good resume looks like in tech. And I was for somebody starting out, and I was showing the resume from somebody who came to our workshop, and it's like he had one project that was in regular like React stack. One project that was React Native with like a regular stack, I think Rails, and then he had one project that was TypeScript GraphQL, Firebase or something like that, and then he had one project that was just an R, that was just like stats. And I was like, wow, I guess this guy could learn anything. So having a diverse portfolio is important. But then again, like I apply to places like Bloomberg, where basically the only thing they care about is whether you can answer this question. Oftentimes being able to answer those silly questions. I actually, for the record, I don't believe in the current model of interviewing. I don't think those questions are necessarily helpful in terms of can somebody do this job? So I have a feeling about that. But that said, it's like what do they say? Don't hate the player, hate the game. It's like that's the game. This is what you're signing up for. You're signing up for a world where if you can answer these questions, like somebody's going to pay you, 25, 50,000 more dollars a year than if you can't answer those questions, and they're not going away. My friend just did he's an ex-production engineer at Facebook. He is a genius. He's absolutely like incredibly smart, and like he was doing the interview process at another place, at DoorDash, which is hiring a lot right now, and like they were still asking him data structure and algorithm questions, and he's coming from a FANG. But like, so those, I think learning those things and getting to a place of like real goodness of them, sadly, is kind of the name of the game.
Okay. This question's: how does one get a dope Venmo shirt like yours?
It's a good question. literally, I got. I'm sorry that my answer is so lame, but it does look good on a tech guy. But like, I think that they just like emailed me and asked me if I wanted to do a study, and then just gave me a shirt. I went in there. I think they gave me a shirt and $50. I was like, hell yeah, I'll do this study or something like that. So that's how I got my shirt.
All right. Next one then, how specific were your job searches? Are junior developer, hang on, I have to read, I can't. Were you looking for just like any junior developer first position, or were you specific for like medical or government, big tech, nonprofit, or like some
Ironically, I think I told my career coach when I graduated that the one place I didn't want to work was in fintech, and here I am. But then again, I made fun of my friends who work for American Express when like I was talking about them, like, yeah, how does it feel not having a soul or something like that, like, and then like I got there and I'm like, wow, everybody's nice and nobody's asking me to be a shell. This is great, or something like that. Like, so I don't know. But really, I would say primarily I was looking for a hook. So, like something that I like felt like I had some sort of affinity towards. Like, I was, again, my background's in like networking. So, my dad had me read like Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and stuff like that. And so like I would like, always be like, okay, how can I go to a place and convince them that like my mission statement and their mission statement are in common? Like, what's a place that I can do that like with? Like, like I, I, this is being recorded. I don't know. I'll say that, I have some problems with some social media places that I interviewed with. But when they asked me questions about that place, I was like, absolutely, like I want to help connect people or something. Like I try to like find like what element of those people that I can, what element of a place I can connect with. Like and that's so like I wasn't as excited about applying to places like JP Morgan or like or God, what the hell was that place called? Super evil place. I don't mind saying that because they are super evil. They're sort of famous for it. They're owned by Peter Thiel.
Palantir.
Palantir. Yeah. I don't like. I wasn't very excited to like apply there or like whatever. But like I was like, so I would try first to apply places that I felt some sort of kinship. If I didn't feel like I could honestly answer the essay by saying that like, like I had a reason why I was applying here, then I usually wouldn't apply or just sort of not put any hope into it because I knew what I was saying was bullshit. So I was really open, but like I would try to have at least be somewhat excited about the place if I was applying there.
That's fair. Just also wanted to bring up in our chat, it looks like some people, but not everybody, are having difficulties joining Slack. So we can look into that some more. I will try like posting in the meetup channel so people can try to join once we have a chance to look into it.
It must be a bug with Slack.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right.
But it's funny, Nick, that your fintech was at the bottom. You work at Amex now and you're wearing a Venmo shirt.
Yeah, it all comes together.
I don't know. It's just I definitely recommend American Express as a place to work. Hey, Rahat. What's it called? Yeah, I definitely recommend it as a place to work. But I just had no idea that it would be a good place to work.
Also, it just makes me think of how people will sometimes talk about they'll rank the interviews and try to schedule interviews in the future. Like once they have some experience, you have a little bit more play with how you can structure your interviews if you're looking for a new job. And it's the same idea. Like you might not think that you're interested in working for some of these companies that you schedule interviews at the beginning, but once you're there and talking to people, it can really open your eyes to like, oh no, this place would be awesome to work at.
I think they managed my expectations down too. I think they just told me, yeah, it's going to be boring or something like that. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's a, definitely, I don't know, like, the thing I'll recommend, it sounds like just rote or just like repeating, but like network, talk to people who work at the place. Like I would do that all the time. When I was applying for somewhere, I'd be like, hey, like, can you tell me about like what this place is like, you know, or something like that. And I wouldn't be douchey about it, and I wouldn't be covertly asking them for a job or a referral. I just was literally just trying to ask them like, hey, can you tell me whether this is actually like a decent place to work, you know? And it just turned out that my friends who worked at Amex, they all did think it was a good place to work, you know? So like, it's good to know those sorts of things. You can hear it from people who work there. Yeah.
For sure.
But my dad worked at Morgan Stanley for a million years and then worked at Merrill Lynch before then. So I knew how terrible finance is and how terrible the finance world is. So that was my version of fintech.
Next question here is, what kind of tech stack, what like front end, back end do you use at American Express?
I said it earlier, but we use full stack JavaScript. So Node, Express. I think sometimes they're using, I don't know, like, I think they're just starting with a new backend service for whatever for backend JavaScript there. There's still some legacy Java stuff. Front end is React, Redux. We have some proprietary stuff called OneApp. That's like a way of doing server-side rendering. So, you know, our own version of like a Next, for instance. So we have something like that, but it's mostly React, Redux, and Iguazu. At first, when I first started using Iguazu, I was like, I don't know about this. And then now that I use it, I'm like, this is great. Like, I don't have to like, I can like put all of my props for my query and my like dispatches all in the same place and then just put them in there. Yeah, this is fantastic. Having some sort of intermediary later between the Redux store and my components. So yeah, it's really nice.
All right. Where did you learn and practice algorithms?
I said this too, but I guess these questions don't account for that. Yeah, I mostly did Kevin Naughton Jr. and Nick White. I used LeetCode. NYC Coders is a really good meetup. I really recommend it highly. Talia and I were good buds, and so is me and Sam and all those guys. I used to go there when it was in person too. I think they had free pizza, which was very attractive to me at the time. And you know, they every month they do like you know, they did one on recursion this month. I think next month they're going to do something on like linked lists. They'll do stuff on stacks and queues. They'll go through algorithm problems. They'll have people pair with each other and stuff like that. I think that's like super helpful too. But for me, it was just mostly Kevin Naughton Jr. I'll say the one extra thing that I'll add to this is that, like, you know, if I was applying to somewhere like Bloomberg, or if I was applying to somewhere like Facebook, you can just literally Google like questions Facebook asks, questions Bloomberg asks, and like you can I remember with Bloomberg they actually had to. I probably shouldn't have been honest, but they realized that I had seen, like, they asked me if I had seen one of their questions that they were asking me, and I had, and so I said yes, and then they asked me to, they gave me a different question. So like it's but you can just research all the questions, and that's like super duper helpful for what's it called, for applying for a company. That said, I did not get past the second round at Bloomberg, so you know, take what you will. So
I will say I'm like honest to a fault, but I think it's a really good idea to admit if you've seen a question before, because like it just, they're trying to understand how you think, right? So if you see, like, if they don't ask, then but it could just give a not so honest representation, I guess, of like.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything if they don't ask.
yeah, they asked me. They explicitly asked. Otherwise, I would not have said anything.
All right, cool. How do you find opportunities to program with more experienced developers?
Ooh, this is a good question. So I would say I'll do three things for this. The first thing is that I have a coding mentor. He's a friend of mine from when I was on. He was a guy who I was on an improv team with back when I was in improv comedy. I think Chris Bell's here, who, if I recall, is very good at improv. If he's still here, but the what's it called? My friend Michael McLarnon, who I think you know, Chris, if you're still here. What's it called? He was my mentor for coding, and basically what I would do is like, he's an ex-Googler, and like, just like I would be like, hey Michael, do you have like 3 hours this, like, not 3 hours, like, do you have like an hour or two this week to like work with me on like a hard problem? And he would be like, yeah, sure. And like, obviously if he had to like reschedule because he's busy with work, he would. But like, people are very open to that sort of thing. Like, you know, like, not everybody, some people are busy, but like, people are very open to donating an hour of their time, like once every 2 weeks or something like that. For Michael, I know he got to like learn new things because of it, and it like made him a better coder. So like, that's like really good. That's a good opportunity. I worked on an open source project called 12 steps.video that like helps people find Zoom meetings for addiction during COVID. Um, that was pretty cool. And so I got to work with a guy who had helped like, who helped maintain Spring Boot. And then like a guy who, another person who worked at American Express. I'm like, I got to learn about Iguazu from him. I got to like learn all about like, I got to learn how to make a PR. I got to learn get reset dash dash soft head equals whatever. I got to like, you know, I got to learn a bunch of things I wouldn't have learned by working on this open source project. So I definitely recommend trying that out. Um, and then the third thing is that like at work, like, I just ask for help when I don't know how to do something. And I'm like, hey, can we like Zoom? Can we WebEx or whatever? And can you like show me how to do this? And at first I just thought like everybody was going to think I'm super needy, and I'm insecure. So probably I still think that. But like, also like, now people ask me to WebEx and help them, which is like really, really, really nice. Like, it's like, oh yeah, like I know how to like help pass unit testing. Oh yeah, like I know like, you know, how to do, I know how to like mock modules with like Jest. Like, oh yeah, like I know how to like what's it called, use the use context hooks that people don't know about. Like, you know, like there's like some, I find that there are some things that I know that some really great other developers don't. So by like asking them if they can pair with me at work, that's like really helpful for me, I would say.
Nice. Do you have any tips for someone who's about to start their first dev job?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, try to, I mean, I wish I could find a way to like, I don't, yes, I've got so many tips. Okay, tip one, take a walk every day. That's like something that I do that I'm really into. I take a walk every day at 2 o'clock that I'm working. I try to take like an hour if I can. That's like another thing about my job that's like astonishing. Like I can't understand it as somebody who like used to. Rahat, you're like the nicest person in the world. The what's it called? Everybody plug for Rahat. He has what's it called? He has something called the Siler Project. It's an open source project. If you're looking to go contribute to a project, go talk to him. It's really cool. It's made using Next.js, which Sam is so obsessed with. The
Drop a
what's it
link,
called?
Rahat.
Yeah, Rahat's super great. The let's see. So I go on a walk at 2 o'clock every day, which is really important. Just like getting outside, you know, getting sun, getting air. A lot of times I'll like figure out problems that I was working through at work on that walk. And other times I won't figure out problems, but I'll just like get to like I just like turn off my phone for 10 minutes. I like set a timer, and I just like make sure that I'm like present in the world and like distracting myself, and that like helps keep me fresh and not like not burnt out. And like, if I was working in a coffee shop and I was doing that, they would fire me in a second. You know, so like, to have that freedom and to remember that I have that freedom, I think that's really important at a dev job. Um, don't, you know, like, try to do your best with imposter syndrome. I obviously, if you hear me, I'm still struggling with it, you know, but like, there's a reason they hired you, you know, like, it's not like, you know, you're there for a reason. They could have hired a bunch of other people. You know how hard it is to get a job. So try to believe in yourself, um, and just remember that it's not your job to know everything. Um, and I guess like, if I had to think of like a last thing, I mean, like, um, uh, don't be afraid to ask questions. you are in charge of you're in charge of your own success. So like the only way that you're going to get help, generally speaking, is by being the squeaky wheel. And that's okay to be the squeaky wheel because they're paying you to do a job. And if your job doesn't get done, that doesn't help anybody. So assert yourself, ask for the help that you need respectfully. You know, obviously if people are too busy, say, you know, respect no, but like put yourself out there and ask for the help that you need. Because again, you know, I remember for like a week at my job, like my dev environment was broken because it's a complicated environment to set up. There's Docker, you know, like there's a lot of permissions that need access, like, and I just had to keep asking people for help. And you know, they also had a job to do, so they didn't always have time to help. But like, if I hadn't asked for help, I wouldn't be coding because my dev environment was broken. So yeah, just ask questions, assert yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I would suggest setting up one-on-ones with as many people as you can if it's not a part of onboarding, because for one, then you kind of learn a little bit about everybody on your team, the teams your team works with, any managers or whatever, anybody who has time to meet you one-on-one for like 15 minutes or something. That also helps you know who you can ask what questions to and who you like connect with better and feel more comfortable asking questions and stuff like that. So the one-on-ones help a lot. I learned that late in my career at Lyft, because Lyft was big into that culture of setting up one-on-ones. Like I had weekly one-on-ones with like my manager, with bi-weekly meetings with my manager's manager, but I didn't have to set those up. That was just part of the Lyft culture. Those are like they did that automatically. So I learned that from Lyft and it was really awesome. So just something I suggest.
I was just thinking about this question the other day and realized something that I think was really helpful for me was the nature of my first position at Trunk Club made me really look at the service from a high level and understand the entire business altogether, instead of just like the app that I work on now is not the entire picture. So if ever you're able to, when you start someplace, to actually like use the product and understand how the other side ends up interacting with this thing that you're making, I think that's really helpful, and just get as much context as you can.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question. This is such an open-ended one. So much to say. How do you network well?
Well, that's a very good question. I have a good answer for that one. As somebody who has said that's my strength. I'll give at least two things for this. The first thing is I've got a golden rule of networking, which is always do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. Are you sending an email to somebody? If you got that email, would you be upset? Would you be annoyed by that email? Would it make you upset? Or would you be okay with that email? Would you be like, all right, this is fine, I'm going to ignore it, but that's fine. You know, or would you be like happy to get that email? Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes when you're getting contact from them. Would this be something that you would enjoy receiving? It's a very basic rule, but it's really something that I try to think about a lot. As an actor, that's like something you have to do is network. So it's I just try to think from the other person's perspective. And I think that as long as I wouldn't be offended by getting this message or annoyed by getting this message, I feel okay sending that message to somebody, knowing that the chance that they might just delete it or ignore it is fine. And I have no expectation of like them replying to me. I just am like, okay, here's this thing. I know if I got this, I wouldn't be annoyed, so I'm gonna send it. If they want to reply, that's great, and that's all the power that I have. Second thing that I would say is no, try to be authentic if you can. Again, I'm an actor. This is something that I've learned in my acting ability, but I don't attempt to be a different way for different people. I don't attempt to like, try to pretend like I'm being like fake nice or fake professional or anything like that. Like I'm just who I am. And, if I'm interested in talking to somebody, try to think of a real reason why I'm interested in talking to them. Like, try to not, cut through the bullshit. I had in film school, I went to film school as well. So when I went to film school, they had like a person who would teach you about networking and stuff. And they said, write whatever you're looking for, whatever your request is, write it with your name in the subject, in the subject of your email, and then, make the email as short as possible. Nobody wants to read a long email. And just be polite. And so, again, and I would say, so that's important as well. And then the last thing that I would say is, I try to mirror something that I call limp fish handshake. I'd never gotten a limp fish handshake until I met Lou Reed once, from Velvet Underground before he passed away. And I remember he gave me his handshake, and I'd never gotten a limp fish handshake. So he gave me a limp fish handshake, which is just like a dead hand, basically. And like, I just like shook the shit out of that shit because I had no idea what was going on, which is not what you're supposed to do. So the idea of a limp fish handshake is like, you give like a pressure. I'm sorry. You give something. You both sort of give equally, and then like you don't apply any pressure. And then like, so the person can give you whatever they want to give you or not give you whatever they want to give you, and they don't feel pressured or awkward, which maintains the relationship. It's like, if you know the subtext, right? They know that you're looking for a job. They know where you are in your life. And as long as like, it's implicit. Like if you're in contact with them and you're talking to them, they know you're looking for a job. And you not asking them for a job all the time, but saying that you're looking for a job, or if they ask you if you're still looking for a job, saying you're still looking for a job, they'll be keeping you in mind anyway. And they'll probably be like, hey, I like that kid. Like, he's not like fucking bothering me for a job all the time, like, but it's tough. He's been having such a hard time getting a job, like maybe I should help him out. Like it's being the person that's not needy and not like, trying to get something. Because whenever you're asking somebody for something, yeah, you're treating them, you're putting them in the position where they might have to say no to you. And nobody likes saying no to people. I mean, maybe some, Hollywood people or vindictive people like saying no to people, but it's generally not an experience that humans like. It's uncomfortable. So don't make people say no to you. Just try to apply light pressure. And if you have an ask, be willing to hear no to the ask and only ask when you need it. If somebody is like, hey, there's an open job opening at American Express, and it's somebody that I know that I've talked to before, and they're a nice person, I'll try to say yes if I can, but that's an appropriate time to ask me for something. It's not, or, and it's always acceptable, as Sam was saying, another golden rule of networking, it's always acceptable to ask somebody for coffee and virtual coffee or whatever. Nobody will ever be offended by you asking, hey, can I pick your brain? Nobody will ever be offended by that. So those are my rules for networking.
Very well said.
Yeah, just don't be sad if they say no. Sometimes people are busy and you just ask at the wrong time. So yeah, it just doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, with all this, just manage your expectations. Like, your job is to put in the time and to try to connect with people. Their job has nothing to do with your job.
All right, next question then. Do you feel any bias from other engineers with a CS degree versus like, since you're from coming from a boot camp?
I've heard this, but no, I actually don't. The guy who's the big lead on my team, or like around like the sort of guru-ish guy, is a self-taught coder. Guy named Edgar Muentes, who's very smart. And so like if he's like the sort of the person everybody looks to, then nobody is like nobody is like being like, oh, I wish I had a CS degree. People come from all different backgrounds. The people who hired me at American Express were boot camp people. I think they all went to boot camps. And there are people on my team who do have CS degrees, but like, there wasn't like a bias against me. There's a PR process, which means that you post your code and this is in almost every company. So you post your code publicly that you're trying to merge with the code base, and people make comments on it. And if your code's bad, then people will, make bad comments like, you need to refactor this. And if your code's not as bad, then people won't make comments. And so everybody can see the quality of the work that you're doing. Like, and if the work is, if the work's bad, you might get comments. And if the work is good, then you also might get comments. So it's more about the quality of the work than it is about whatever education you have. I think that's why the boot camps can even exist, is because all people care about is the product and being able to work with nice people. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the environment where I work also sounds similar, where a lot of people are self-taught, a lot of people from boot camps, and then also lots of people from computer science degrees. I don't know if Sam has ever experienced anything different, but I can agree with everything you just said.
Yeah, not really. I think it's just in people's heads that people are gonna discriminate against them, but in real life, I've never really seen it in the workplace.
I think for me, where it came from was when I was thinking about going to boot camp, I had talked to people who had been in the industry for a really long time. And I think places outside of like San Francisco, like the Bay Area, were maybe a little bit slower to catch on to this idea of like,
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, just
but,
different cultures in different areas.
But in general, the coworkers have been great.
Yeah.
Cool. So moving on, what's a typical day like in your job?
That's a good question. It depends on what kind of story I have. The way that I work is probably pretty similar to the way that a lot of devs work, which is we have Jira and we have Bitbucket and we have stories that we work on. So I'm assigned a task. Sometimes that task will take one day or very quick. Sometimes that task will take several days. Sometimes I'm assigned a task that I've done before and I know how to do it, and I can just sort of do it quickly or take my time and do it, take breaks. Sometimes the task is like something that I've never done before, and I have to bother a bunch of people and Google and try to figure out how to do things. And I probably should have said this: read other people's PRs. That's like the number one thing that they do at my job. Is like, I haven't done something. Oh, here's a PR of how somebody did it, and then you just try to understand their code, and then you try to refactor it to use it yourself. So like some days it'll be something more that I have to like learn. Some days it'll be a straightforward task doing something that I've done before. Other days I've done 99% of the work of the task, but the way that it works in my work is that every line has to be covered. So our tests have to run every line of the stuff at my work. So I remember there was a day Friday, or maybe it was like Thursday, that I was just trying to get like tests to get like 2 lines covered so that I could push things to make a PR, and like just going crazy trying to get those 2 lines to work, like, and that's not an uncommon story, and this is not even function. The function was there. This is just trying to get tests to cover those lines. So so the days sort of vary wildly, but I would say like it's usually some sort of like creating a component, creating a query, fixing a bug, and sometimes it'll be something that'll take 1 day, sometimes it'll be something that'll take 2 days. There's stand up every morning at 10 a.m., 10:15, and then checking in with people, and then also approving other people's PRs. So I have to be part of the PR review process too. So making notes. I'm still pretty timid about that. I don't like pointing out things that I don't like in other people's code, because I'm just like, I just assume everybody's very smart, and I'm like, if whatever, they'll figure it out, or I'll tell them if there's a console log or something like that. But yeah, so stand up, trying to work on the task that I'm doing, asking for help, answering other people's asks for help, and taking that walk, and then just trying to continue going until 5.
You don't have to. Oh, sorry.
Maybe you're going to say the same thing, but I'm curious, what would it take for you to be less timid about like giving feedback for other people?
I was going to comment on that too. So just to add on to that, you don't have to like say you don't like it. You ask it in a question form.
Yeah.
To like try and understand why they did it, because maybe they might think about it and they might be like, oh yeah, I don't know, I can't explain why I did this. I don't know why it's good.
Look, I do, like, I know how to structure that, and I have done it. But at the same time, like, anytime, I mean, like, I know I'm very sensitive to any perceived criticism, which is a big flaw. I don't like that about myself. But like,
A question's not a criticism, though. You're just wondering, like,
I
why
take
that was
I take
done.
it as criticism. I take it as criticism. So, like, if somebody is being like, and I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, it's not the right thing to do. It is a flaw in me as a programmer. But if somebody is like, yeah, exactly, there is no tone, there is no context on the internet. So I don't know, like, when somebody's asking a question, like, like they're being like, why are you using use state here or something like, it's like, is this really something that, like, do we really need this if condition? I'm like, oh no, like they know something that I don't, like, like, and then
Well,
it's like,
don't phrase the question like that. Like, do you really need? Usually it's inquisitive, like you really want to learn why this
I've
code is like this. Because you, as a team, you got to understand all the decisions that are made in the code base.
yeah,
I totally agree. I lean on the word curious a lot. Like curious why you chose to do this thing, or like I try to, yeah, come at it with an inquisitive mind. And I think the other person could interpret that as like either I don't know, or I'm I mean, maybe I
Yeah.
am challenging their, like, I have a different idea of how this could have happened, but
Yeah, you got to try and take the code less seriously too. So if you're getting like um upset or about somebody asking a question, try and like remember that it's just code. Like at least if you're not making like pacemakers or anything, like nobody's gonna die
no, I know,
with the code.
I'm just I'm still new to this, so I'm still struggling with imposter syndrome. Even as I'm saying that you got to do something about it, I still struggle
But
with it a lot, and so that's really where that's coming out.
but yeah,
it's
just so
tough.
you know, like most people are just asking questions because they don't want to know. They're not trying to like say you're shitty.
The PR process of my work is very intense. There are people here from my work. I'm not sure if they
Okay.
can publicly comment, but the PR process of my work is intense.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry,
I
just to
can.
throw in there,
It,
the PR comment on the front end work at American Express is borderline neurotic. There is
okay.
such a
Yeah.
thing as too much, and they flirt with the edge. I didn't say that
Oh
though.
yeah, yeah.
It depends on your team too. It's not just the company. So
So
That is
And
my
like,
personal opinion, not my opinion as an employee of a certain company.
hashtag not hashtag use my own. Yeah, that's what they make us say. Yeah.
okay,
also,
next
like, the
question.
imposter syndrome is crazy real, and it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like a roller coaster. It'll come and it'll go and it'll come again, and like all right, so this question for people who are doing a career change: how can you stay motivated while learning all of these development topics? Like, how can you avoid burnout? I know you had mentioned burnout.
Yeah, I've got some good answers to this question too. Staying motivated. I mean, look, I make, I want to say, I was a dog walker before this, and I was having a bad year for commercials and TV. So I would say I make probably between 5 to 6 times what I used to make. That's a pretty good motivation in my opinion. Like being able to take a vacation, being able to pay down my credit card, being able to, like afford to go out to dinner sometimes, like it's nice. It's nice to have a savings account. These are things I didn't have. It's nice to have health insurance. Like it's nice to have like, uh, nice things, and then to feel like I have job security. Um, this is like these were not things that I had in the past, like at all. So I think that's a pretty good motivation. But in terms of like not burning out, self care is really important to me. During the 7 months that I was looking for a job, um, I have a whole spiel that I give to people where I tell them like the 5 things that they should be doing like while looking for a job. But like self care is like really up there. Like I would go to the beach 2 to 3 times a week during the summer just to like make myself like happy, just like do something playful and enjoyable so that I could tolerate all these rejections that were soul crushing. Oftentimes I'd get to the last round and I would get no feedback, and it would be like I went through 5 rounds of interviews once and there was no feedback and I just didn't get the job. You know, so like, and that day I went to the beach and I swam and I, you know, drank White Claws on the beach with my friends over in Far Rockaway at the Fort Tilden. It was awesome, you know, but, and I was, it was a really tough day, but it was like, it was great to be there. Another thing that I do, which I really recommend, is like just, and I did this right before coming here. I volunteered at an animal shelter over in Kensington. I help walk dogs. I was cleaning dog bowls right before I came here. Help people meet dogs that they're going to adopt. Spending time with animals, spending time outdoors, walking, getting sunshine. That's been incredibly important to me. And you know, those are all things that are COVID safe. The beach is COVID safe. Walking dogs is COVID safe. You're outdoors. So those are really. Oh, hey, Sheed. He's an organizer of NYC Coders too. So those are all important things. Beach. I would do hangouts with my friends in the park every week. I just went. You know, like I would just try to make sure that I was doing something fun that I enjoyed that wasn't video games, or you know, I could, because I could do that stuff normally. Like that's not self-care. Self-care is like being outside, doing things, being social, volunteering, stuff like that.
And speaking of self-care, I have one more Headspace code to give away. I'll give it away after we're done with the questions.
I did Headspace for a long time. I now meditate for 10 minutes every day I wake up. And then I meditate for 10 minutes when I'm walking. I turn off my phone and I keep a timer for that.
It helped a lot, especially when you're like stressed about work and stuff like that.
Oh my God, this week was tough actually. So I was very stressed. So yeah.
Once you start a meditation practice, I feel like it helps you recognize when you're starting to get like really worked up, and then you can like, that can be your cue to take a break. But it's hard to recognize that until you're in that practice.
When I was detoxing from Facebook, I got off, like, I'm like on Facebook, but I barely check it now. So when I was, I just got a text from my friend Stan, who's at Bloomberg, another NYC Coders guy. I would say, okay, do I have a desire to look at Facebook right now? Okay, instead of looking at Facebook, I'm going to take like 20 breaths or something like that. That's been really helpful too. And for all of you guys who are like, I can't meditate, like it makes me crazy or whatever, just remember there is no perfect meditation. Like there's no way to do it right. You know, like just your attempt at meditation is meditation. That's it. And by doing it more, you get better at it.
Awesome. Okay, this question is potentially for multiple people. What is a good resource to find communities?
I mean, I just listed like 7 of them or something like that.
How did you find them, I guess, is the question.
I just like, I just asked, and I know it's tough, you know, because like you guys don't have the in-person, but so right before COVID, when I graduated from school, there was this thing, Amazon had this thing called in Soho called the AWS Loft, which was a free co-working space you could go to. And just, if you were a dev, and just like, they had free sodas and free coffee, and you would just go there and you just talk to everybody else who was looking for a job, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to this meetup. Do you want to come? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. So that's how I found out about all the meetups that I went to. This could be a controversial thing to say, so I apologize if anybody takes it poorly. It's certainly not intended poorly, but you know, I say my philosophy of life is whatever cards you have, you should play them. So if you feel like it, if you feel like your sexual orientation, for instance, is important to you, joining like something like Out in Tech might be a good idea. If you feel like your ethnicity is important to you, joining blank group in tech might be a good idea. I know that I joined a group called Artists Who Code, which is fun, even though I joined that pretty recently. Just any sort of community that you can join around some sort of sub part of like a subgroup is definitely nice. Yeah, women in tech, lots of groups for that. Like women who code, you know, stuff like that. Like I think those are always going to be great communities because you already, you know, theoretically have something in common with those people that you can talk about. And so people will be more inclined to help each other, or just they'll lose that one layer of like disbelief of this could be a crazy person that like, you know, like you have on like LinkedIn or something like that. So that's good. But that's how I found those. Yeah.
Yeah, you just gotta find your tribe. They're out there. Just Google, join some Slacks, and then once you're like in, like I hang out in Slack all day. You can just, you'll find other communities from hanging out in communities. And then you just keep finding communities if you're interested in all kinds of stuff.
I mean, the person's
You're-
here right now and just heard like 7 to 10 different opportunities for finding new groups.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
I don't really have a different.
Just from here, we posted a lot of
Yeah.
links, and I posted a GitHub for Lady Lee. She has on her GitHub a whole bunch of links for you to find your tribe. And we just added the developer army Slack. The pull request finally got merged. So if you ever forget the link to developer army, if you don't download the Slack app, it's on that GitHub. You can start that repo.
Okay, this is a repeat about, would you recommend focusing on data structures and algorithms over portfolio, even if you're not necessarily going for one of the giants? I think just a really quick yes or no.
Yes. Like I said, that's not how I'd like the game to work, but that's currently how the game works.
Okay. What's the biggest illusion that has been shattered since you started working?
I mean, I want to say everyone is smarter than me and I'm a dummy or something. I don't know. Like, oh, the biggest illusion that's been shattered is what I was talking about earlier. The idea that I'm going to be fired in any minute. Like, that doesn't really, I'm sure that exists in some tech jobs, but I haven't seen that in any of the tech jobs that my friends have. None of them are working in jobs where they're going to be fired in any minute. Like, and when I worked in coffee shops and in movie theaters and stuff like that, I was going to be fired in any minute. And in like tech, people are just like, like, hey, how can I help you, or something like that. I remember there was one time my project manager is like a super nice guy named Ram, and like I remember one time I was like, oh no, I'm so embarrassed, like I can't complete this thing by like Friday or something like that. He's like, that's okay, like Nicholas is finding it challenging to do this thing. That's totally fine. Do it next week. Okay. Or something like that. Like, no, yeah, like, but I had that feeling for a long time. Like, if I do anything wrong, I'm going to be fired. And, publicly shamed. Yeah.
I went through that same feeling, like had sleepless nights because I was convinced that I was getting fired. And I had to just keep reminding myself that it was even for some reason told to us in like onboarding, like if there is an issue, if someone has a problem with your performance, you have to be told before anything can become an action out of that. So yeah. Okay, so how do you know you are ready to face technical interviews? How much data structure and algorithm do you need to be able to pass a technical interview?
I recommend, if you're coming from a JavaScript background, that you have done the Cold Steel class on Udemy. There are other good resources, but from what I learned, that was pretty much the gold standard for the baseline. Like, oh, okay, I know what a linked list is. Oh, okay, I know what a queue is. I know what a priority queue is. I've seen somebody implement Dijkstra's algorithm. I've seen memoization, and tabulation. Like, these are like the Colt Steel. He's got a very weird name. It's like his name is like I hope it's okay to say this here. His name is like a porn star name or something like that. And I think he was like the teacher at like Galvanize. He was like the head of
Nick, I'm sorry to
there.
interrupt. I actually went to his bootcamp and I actually said this to them and they got offended.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend him.
No. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Yeah, he's always like the subject's very dry, but he's always playing with his cats, which is kind of nice. but that's a very good introduction to somebody who has no idea what data structures and algorithms are and big O, et cetera, to do that class. I'd recommend that. And then I would try to be able to have at least 2 or 3 elite code easies that you can do. You know, you could do it. You can do the anagram problem. You can do, you know, maybe you can do a problem like find like, you know, I don't know, like reverse a number without converting it to a string. You know, like a couple basic problems, have them under your belt and start applying. Ultimately, your interviews are only practice for other interviews. You don't know who's going to like you, when you're going to get a job. A lot of these things are pretty low yield. But something that they teach you, again, as an actor, is that like every audition is a networking opportunity. It's a free networking opportunity. Because you might not work for this person now, but if you left a good impression with them, if you were green but you were nice, then who knows down the line when you might work for them again, or you might talk to them again. So I would I'd approach it as like a learning experience. I would have at least the Cult Steel class or something like it, whatever you prefer, down so that you know at least what some terms are. And then I would do at least have like a few elite code easies, and then I think you're just ready to go, and then just learn as you go.
Yeah, and regarding networking, I usually connect on LinkedIn with people I interview with, as long as it wasn't like, as long as they're like cool. I'll send them a LinkedIn request. And as far as you're ready, I agree with Nick. You just go try it. Just try an interview and see how you do. But if you want like a litmus test, I think Tigran Sloyan, he was on the other week. He's the founder of Code Signal. He said Code Signal has like tests that you can do, practice tests. He said like 700 is like a good litmus test. I think it was 700. Was it 700, Brady? I think he said, or I forget. He said that's pretty good to like, you should be ready if you have 700 score on
I'll have to go
Code
look
Signal.
back. But
even if you don't have 700, you can still go try and interview. You never know. Like not even all companies ask algorithms and data structures,
David Ash
for front end. What is that?
David Ash is plugging Algo Expert, which is also something that I've heard as being good.
That one is kind of pricey though for like people who don't have a job. But some people, yeah, a lot of people like that one. I think it's like $100 a year or something like that. Maybe more than that. I forget how much it is. But yeah,
LeetCode, I think has an LeetCode or HackerRank has like an easy interview track, I think, as well.
And the best way to practice too is with other people. So like Pramp is a good one. So you can just try it out. If you bomb super hard, maybe not yet. You can do Pramp as many times as you want. So just do it until you don't bomb really hard.
Cool. This next question is just how can we get added to that coffee meetup group?
That's for Sam.
Yeah, we can post our Slack again, and then
virtualcoffee.io or something. Sam, is that what it was?
Oh, was it? Oh, maybe the virtual. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, maybe
it was a donut.
The coffee donut. Okay, yeah. So I
just did one.
Okay, yeah.
So
the virtual coffee channel.
Two different things. There's one that's like this other group that is just virtual coffee. Somebody else recommended it in the meetup a few weeks ago. And then that inspired me to start one inside of our Slack community, just to get people to know each other within our community. So I would recommend doing both, because then you can get to know the people in this community. We have like 425 plus people now in our Slack. So if you just join the channel Virtual Coffee in our Slack, every 2 weeks it will randomly pair you up with somebody to have virtual coffee. I still got to do mine. I've been busy moving, so.
And virtual coffee
Lunch Club. That's like okay.
Lunch Club.
Lunch Club.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, I never tried it, but I heard people doing that.
Lunch Club is the one I was about to say this about virtual coffee, thinking about Lunch Club actually. You don't even have to talk about technical things. You could be paired with like anyone.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. All right. Do you have any good resources for finding companies that have similar values as you in your job search? Oh my goodness,
yeah.
I'm so
well, what's it called? Are you talking? Are you gonna plug yourself? myfirstdevjob.com.
Oh no. Every single meetup we end up talking about this site
Key
called
Values?
Key Values. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Key Values. Yeah. Key Values, good site. I would still say the best thing to do is just talk to as many people as possible. Because again, I didn't know Amex would be the place for me. I didn't know it was going to be a good experience. It's a very good experience. If I did not talk to people there, I would have thought it would be a bad experience. And it might not have even been applied. So talk to people. Key Values is good though. It's a good starting point.
Yep. The bootcamp alum made that site.
Nice.
Shout out Lin Tai.
Nice.
I think, yeah.
Okay, when you asked people about their experience with a company, talking about like networking, was it on LinkedIn or were you already previously connected? Did you connect and then ask?
It's a principle that I just said. If it's people that I didn't know, I would try to pick somebody who had some level of connection to me. So like they went to Flatiron or whatever, or they went to or they went to NYU, or they went to or we have some connection in common or something like that. Which I think is what LinkedIn is anyway meant for. It's not meant for blind stuff, I think, as much. So like. In fact, I think there used to be a thing on LinkedIn way back in the day where you could like ask somebody to introduce you to somebody else. That was like a big thing there, if I recall correctly. So anyway, yeah, I would usually just be like, hey, I saw there's a thing to this company. I'm just looking to see if this is a good place to work. If you have any time to talk, any way that you like, email, questions, or a quick Zoom or phone call. Let me know if that's cool. Thank you again for your time. Like short and to the point. Just not sound like a serial killer. Be okay if you don't answer me.
How are we doing on time? We're at like 1:30 now. How much time you got?
Me?
Yeah.
What is David Ash making the joke about? Yes, serial killer is really good at algos. Thank you. Well, my girlfriend has been very patiently sitting over there. We are supposed to go to Costco. Can we say that? Could we say that I'll leave at 5? Is that okay?
Yeah. How about we do like a couple more questions, Brady, and then we'll just stop recording. And then if you got to bounce, you can bounce. I'll hang out for a bit. Whoever wants to hang out and just introduce himself. We'll do that after a couple more questions. I'll also give away the Headspace code after we're done with the question.
Nice.
All right, sounds good. So especially hearing how like you had gone to multiple interviews and were never really sure how it was going to turn out, what do you think helped you get hired at American Express?
People like me. The person who I worked with, what's it called? The person who recommended me was somebody who I was friendly with, I'd worked with him on meetups before. And like, he knew that I wasn't a crazy person. He knew that I was nice. He knew that I was responsible. And like, so saying like, hey, I worked with this person in my personal projects. He's nice. He's responsible. He's like not a douchebag. Like he was nice. Like I think that, and that I had a couple other people that I had met. In the end, I had 3 people recommend me for that company, and like they were all people that I had either worked with or met, and like I had just the recommendation that, oh yeah, I've actually met this person. I've actually worked with them. They were nice. Like that's what got me the job, without a doubt. Like because anything else is just like reading tea leaves, basically, right? Somebody could prep really hard for an interview and like get the algo questions right, and like, you know, they could still be total nightmare to work with, or just not know anything. Somebody, you know, could be, you know, like lie on their resume or whatever. But if somebody, you know, like is actually seems knowledgeable and nice, and you've worked with them, that's the best way to get a job somewhere else, I think. So do open source projects, go to meetups, get involved. I can't tell you how many people have gotten involved in like, you know, something like, for instance, like NYC Coders, or like, you know, or at NYC Bootcampers Anonymous, like people who were like, you know, people who used to be just like people who attended that, who then later came to give talks, you know, or people who used to be just people who attended it, who then later became organizers. It's like, oh yeah, of course I would recommend that person for a job. I've worked with them. They help so much. Like, I know that they're not crazy. I know that they're a good coder. So I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, even when like in-person things start up, you can just volunteer to help out, check people in at the meetup and stuff like that. And they really appreciate that kind of stuff, the people who, and you get to meet all the people as they walk into the meetup if you do that.
I would very much like for things to what's it called, to get back to that, but you know, whatever.
We'll get back there this year. I think so.
My parents are vaccinated. I'm happy about that.
I was just talking to someone about lots of people are getting vaccinated. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this question. I'm in a new junior role and my onboarding and support have been great, but I'm struggling with measuring my progress with the new code base and tech stack. Any advice?
Is anybody complaining about you? Because if they're not, you're doing fucking fine. Like, don't be hard on yourself. Like, you're doing great. If you weren't doing great, you'd know about it. You know, I understand. I commiserate. Like, I feel the same way all the time. But guess what? Like, you know, it's not your job to measure your performance and to tell you that you're failing. It's somebody else's job to do that. Somebody that they're paying to do that. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah.
If you have one-on-ones with your manager, you should talk about that kind of stuff, and they should let you know, as long as they're not a shitty manager.
Yeah. You could also see if there's any sort of like progression ladder document type thing, so that it's listed out, like what are the expectations at the level that you're at.
They have
that might help. It's usually at like larger companies, so if you're at a startup, it might not be the case, but that can be really helpful. I remember I perceived that maybe behind my back, some of my coworkers were complaining about me, but yeah, my manager never had any discussion about that with me. And that was just something that I think I needed to work through on my own. And I think a little bit of that perception was other people's imposter syndrome kind of flaring. So that might be helpful to remember. Cool. I think maybe we should wrap it up here and then we can get into introductions.
Yeah, that's a good stopping point, I think. Thanks again, Nicholas, for joining us on this Saturday afternoon. Any last words from you?
I'll hang around until I think about 5. Is that okay? Do you think we'll make it to Costco in time? Costco closes at 7, right? I'm trying to. There's going to be a blizzard, I think, in New York again tomorrow. Maybe 3 to 6 inches, they're saying. So I think Costco is going to be crazy. I had my first time ever. I'm a New Yorker, so I know she wants to go now, David. But you know, like I'm trying. But I want. All right. Is it okay if I head out then?
Yeah, no problem.
Right,
thanks. Thanks for even joining us.
My last word. What's it called? The reason why I said yes to this, and by the way, thank you very, very much to Sam and to Brady. Brady reached out to me when I was at a real low point, and you know, tried to like help me get a job and was like inviting me to this, and it was just like really nice. But this is the thing. The reason why I'm here, and the reason why thing that I'm really find very important about coding and about all this stuff is, you know, like I find it extremely important to be paying forward. So many people, I'm so grateful. Even people in this chat, vWhat, David Ash, like Shahid, a lot of these people, they helped me, like do things. Like they helped me for free. Sam, like Brady, they helped me for free. Like help me with no expectation of getting anything in return, to develop my career. People have constantly helped me without even knowing me that well. So that's why I find it so important to try to help other people in this industry. Yes, that's right, David. You sent me a bill. The what's it called? Because that's how this industry works, and that's why I like this industry. Is people just help people without any expectation of getting anything in return. And so I'm very grateful to be here, and I hope that what I said was helpful to some people. And I hope that you guys have a great day. And I'm going to go to Costco and hope that it's an okay experience. It's only my second time going. I'm a New Yorker, so I haven't been before a lot. Okay. Have a great night, guys.
Thank
All
you
right,
so
see ya.
much. Good luck at
Thanks for
Costco.
joining us.